Yeah.
Welcome to the Into the Wilderness podcast and our monthly series Behind the Lens, where I speak to photographers, filmmakers, and creatives from around the world about breathtaking imagery and film and the stories behind them. In keeping with the nature of this podcast, much of these conversations are focused around the intersection between wildlife and humans, but occasionally we will expand outside this realm, looking at expeditions, human conflict, and social struggle. In this show, I speak to Derek Malou. His work has been on my radar for quite some time, and as someone who also enjoys countryside pursuits, much of his imagery is focused on the natural world, with an incredible eye for colour, composition, and design. You can find him at D_Malou, which is D_MALOU on Instagram. And the images that we talk about in this show you can find on my account at Byron J. Pace. I posted them a couple of days ago. These new shows are made possible by our Patreon supporters, of course, and Modern Huntsman, which is just about to release Volume 5 of its publication. It's going to print, I think, today. So it should be available in the next coming weeks and is currently available on pre-order if you visit the Modern Huntsman website. If you want to support these shows, head over to patreon.com/PaceBrothers. Thank you for tuning in. Next week, we will have our normal long-form conversation, which will be with Dr. Amy Dickman from Oxford University, where we talk all about global conservation. How has the last 3 months been for you? I imagine it's been very similar to a lot of photographers, filmmakers, and creatives I know, in that you've been locked down and all of your work has been cancelled.
Yeah, exactly. Since almost 3 months now, I'm at my parents' house in Slovakia, and just all my jobs were cancelled. I have like few jobs for editing and stuff like that, but nothing like traveling again and shooting a bit here. I'm lucky because I have a lot of nature around me and wildlife, so that's cool.
So what were there any amazing trips that you had to cancel that were already on the books that got cancelled because of the global lockdown?
Yeah, I was supposed to be in the US in end April, beginning of May for a long road trip around the West US, and that was, of course, cancelled. Anyway, a European cannot travel to US, so...
No. When I left the US, I had like 2 weeks left on my 3-month ESTA visa, which is what you would have been traveling on too, I assume. And we can't go back now. Trump doesn't want us back yet.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, probably I will just postpone it for September, but we never know. I mean, for now, the situation is not clear yet, so...
No, well, we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about some of your images. Now, you've sent me through a selection. Before I go through the pictures that you sent me, which are stunning, I've always loved your work. I want to talk about a handful of pictures which we pulled for the latest issue of Modern Huntsman. So I wrote a story based on a documentary called The Islands and the Whales with a friend of mine, Mike Day, who's been on the podcast before. And we pulled some screen grabs from that story, which was largely speaking about whale hunting. I've talked about on the podcast a number of times in sort of recent weeks. But we were slightly lacking in actual still image photography because these were screen grabs from the film that he took, which worked really well on design. So I knew that you'd been to the Faroes. I reached out to you and said, hey, do you have some imagery that we could use in this story? And you presented me with way more than I could ever use, and it was beautiful. How did you end up in the Faroes? And tell me, I thought the one image that sticks in my mind in particular that I want to ask you about after you tell me why you were there is one of the images that we used, I think, was a boat in the water, and there's like a seagull coming across. The seagull's like slightly blurred because it's moving, and you've got cliffs on the right-hand side and this incredible blue sea.
Yeah, that's probably my favorite image from that trip, for sure. So basically, like 3 years ago, I think I went on a trip in Thailand with another Belgian photographer, and he was doing all the still image, and I was producing a short film for that trip. And of course, we became friends and started to talk a lot. And the year after, he went already like 2 times in the Faroe Island for the Faroese tourism office. And he went back on 2018, I guess. And he was looking for a filmmaker to just join him on the trip. So that's why I went the first time in the Faroe Islands and started to work with the Faroese tourism office.
Okay, and I saw the film actually when it came out, the sort of a short showcase of what's there for people to see. Where can people watch that?
Probably on the YouTube channel of Visit Faroe Island, or Instagram, I think, or of course on my own social channel.
What was it like being there? What's it like as a place? It's on my bucket list of locations to visit.
Probably it's my favorite place I've ever visited. Why? It's just because the mix of modern, Scandinavian culture and still very traditional and local life being isolated for so long time. It's just crazy. Also, the landscape, as you can imagine, are incredible. For me, it's a mix between maybe a bit of Scotland and Iceland.
It looks like the kind of place that it doesn't matter where you point your camera, there's going to be an image shot, and there's going to be an amazing image. And that's not to take anything away from the skill of any photographer who gets there, or to take away from the incredible images that you took. But landscape and light just seem to be in abundance there.
Yeah, light is difficult because the first time I went there, it was like raining every day. You can get some moody shot, but under heavy rain, it's still difficult. But last time I went, like this last summer, the light was incredible.
So this image in particular, the one with the boat and the seagull, tell me about how that came. I assume that's a drone shot. And
yeah.
Was it something that was planned? Was it an accident? What made you try and capture that image?
It was like just luck. I was with my brother that time on this trip. That was last year. And we went to another island, which can be reached by boat, by the ferry, which is called Sandoy. It's almost 1 hour boat, I think. Almost, yeah. And I was already there the year before and knew some place, especially that place where you can see that, I don't know, that rock coming out of the sea.
Oh, the cliff face, like just going up to the sky from the sea.
Yeah, but you see just in the front of the boat, you see that stone coming out. I don't know what you call it. They have a special name for it in the Faroe Island, but I don't know in English the name.
I'm gonna try and find the image while you're talking because I can't quite remember the rock. I think it was a Rockstack, was it?
Yeah. And we were there. There were a very isolated farm there. I wanted to capture with the drone, so I started flying the drone, and suddenly I saw that sailing boat coming over. It was really windy and like the storm was coming. So I sent the drone trying to catch up with this sailing boat. And then the battery was starting to being very low. I was almost 1 kilometer away from my point and just snapped few pictures, a bit of footage, and then back, and the drone literally landed on maybe 3% battery.
Oh, taking risks. That I mean,
Yeah,
sometimes the
really,
best images come with a huge amount of risk attached.
exactly. It was really cold and windy, but I was sweating like crazy.
I've just brought it up here now. I think, yeah, you're talking about this like rock stack.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. Yeah.
almost the way that you've taken the picture, the boat's sailing away from you, and it's almost in line with the rock stack in the distance. And
Exactly.
then further
That was
land
the
is kind
goal,
of
yeah.
misty. Yeah.
And then that
Beautiful.
seagull was just
And that was
crossing
planned, right?
by chains, you know?
That was planned. You deliberately got the seagull like that.
Yeah, of course.
I love the fact that the seagull's slightly blurry because it must have been going pretty quick.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
I'd
And
like
the
to think
aperture
that
probably,
was deliberate, but your shutter must have been quite low.
yeah.
Yeah, incredible. Well, that's just one of many images that you sent me that's going to be in this Islands of the Whales article in Volume 5.
I really can't wait to
And,
see. Yeah, I'm very excited.
The layout design for that with your images and the images that got pulled from the documentary, it looks insanely good. So I can't wait to share that with you and share it with people. So let's move on to a couple of the other images that you sent me. I'm going to start off with a picture which I know very well because I have taken a very similar picture a number of times last year, which is an aerial shot looking down in a bird's eye view of some elephants. Now, you were actually at a place not very far from where I go quite often. A friend of mine's farm is just north of where you were. What took you to Namibia? What were you doing there? And tell me about this image of a small herd of elephants walking with these amazing elongated shadows.
Yeah, that was also last year. I was working for Erindi, which probably you know. And we were mostly capturing wildlife, and also I was doing a short film for them. And we stayed there for, I think, a week or so. Going out every day, early in the morning, and then back in the evening. And we were almost focusing on elephants. So we were tracking the elephant every day. And we were looking for that particular herd because the local guide there normally what I've been told that the elephants are quite sensible to drone. So not all herd are okay with drone flying over them. So we were tracking that particular herd, and finally we found them. I sent the drone, and I mean they were very relaxed, no problem. I followed them for several, 100 meters or so, and then took the drone back. But what really makes it special for me, it's also the memories coming with it. We followed that herd after with the car and went to the Waterhole, where it was on the sunset. And soon they were joined by other herds. And at the end, we were surrounded by maybe 80 elephants all around us. We were literally blocked between the Waterhole and the herd around us. So we couldn't move from 1 meter without being noticed by any elephant. So that was scary, but probably the most beautiful moment of my life. I mean, being just in the center of 80 elephants, it's great. It's incredible.
You got the series of images that I've seen you put out from your time there in Namibia really blew me away. You had, I mean, anybody who's been there will know that if you can get out of bed early and make the most of the light first thing in the morning, and also out in those last couple of hours as the sun's going down, Africa graces you with the most incredible light that there is to take photos with. But you really harnessed that incredibly well. Obviously, this was, it must have been past midday, judging by the shadows, but still a little bit away from the end of the day. But playing around with the way that the shadows are cast over the ground, for me, is kind of what makes this image spectacular.
Exactly, yeah. For me, it's the same. I wanted to have the shadow First I tried with the giraffe, which is also great, but couldn't really get the shot I had in mind. But that one with the elephant, like, really is something. I wish there were not so much bush around, but still, I love it.
Well, now they've actually had rain, so now they would all be walking in long grass. So I don't think you wouldn't quite get the same shadows on the very dry, hard ground. The place that I go to, at Alex's, at Jan Olofs's safaris, it's almost unrecognizable from when I was there last year.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard it's totally different with the rain or in the dry season.
Before I move on to the next image I want to talk about is this pack of foxhounds, I think. I wanted just to question you about how you view color. I mean, this is something you and I have, I think we messaged about a little while ago, when we were just sort of referencing the way people edit. Obviously, a lot of this is personal taste and like what is your preference. But I've always been very captivated by the color and tone of your images. Obviously, that's reflective of the place that you're in. So your whole sort of Namibia collection had a look and feel about it that was very distinctive. Likewise, the Faroese collection. What is it that you're looking for in that? Because I think if there are people who are listening to this who are, I was going to say aspiring photographers, but not even aspiring photographers, just people who enjoy taking pictures, either in a professional capacity or just enthusiastic amateurs. I think there's a tendency, especially with the sort of rise in popularity of Instagram, which is the picture platform that people use, to really sort of overdo the edit to the point where you think it looks great, but really on reflection, sometimes after, you actually realize it looks terrible and not realistic whatsoever. And I've been guilty of that with my own images, where I'll edit something, come back to it a few days later, and it's like, what on earth was I thinking? Start again.
Yeah, I can relate to that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I totally agree with what you say. For me, a lot of people now, and I've doing it also a lot, they are trying to give overall feel and style of their image. So maybe I feel they are over editing it to get the same feel on every photo. Now my approach is a bit different. I start from a trip. For example, if we take Namibia, where the dominant tone would be orange, probably. I'll stick around that and edit in a way it can be like harmonious, but at the same time it feels natural.
Yeah.
If you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, I understand that. So you're editing to reflect reflect that trip in that series that you're on, rather than having everything distinctively look like. I mean, if I see you post your image, I more often than not I know it's you before I see your name anyway, because of that's a combination of composition and style and the direction of the photography. But I know exactly what you're saying. This sort of drive to have a distinctive look and feel. It's almost gone to the complete. If I look at what Nat Geo post and what most of the National Geographic photographers present, especially if you're looking at the Nat Geo channels on Instagram or wherever else you look at them, a lot of the photography has gone to the complete opposite spectrum of that, because that photography is be as reflective of reality as possible.
Yeah, true. Yeah, true. And also, probably I've realized then, looking back at the image I edited like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. No, it's completely
I hate doing
out of fashion,
Yeah.
So I'm trying to not edit as the latest fashion on Instagram, but more because the image is beautiful in itself. Trying to stay away from that fashion. Of course, I'm influenced by it. And if you look back at 80s photo or 60s, they have like their specific feel. But still, I think now we are probably overdoing it.
Yeah, no, I would agree. From that, let's move on and talk about this foxhound photo. Now, I think you put these up fairly recently, I think, did you?
Yeah, but actually they are old.
Oh, okay. So tell me the story about this, because I made a film quite a few years ago now. Don't think I took any stills during when I was making it, but it was all about fox hunting and this sort of history of packs of foxhounds and their use in the landscape. So, what country is this in, and why were you there?
Yeah, that's in France, and I have a question for you about it because I cannot find a word for. It's not fox hunting, but actually it's deer hunting. But with the dogs
so these are
and
deer
horse.
hounds.
Yeah, but in French we have like this particular word for it, and in English I cannot find it.
I might not. I don't think I'm going to be able to help you. But tell me what the word is, out of curiosity. Maybe some of our listeners can.
We call it or chasse à courre, which is basically a broad word for all horse and hound hunt. And then more specifically, we call it venerie, which is a French word which doesn't mean anything. I mean, it's just for... probably if you translate it, I don't know.
Okay, so these
probably it's weird in English.
So what was this day all about? Why were you there?
So that was in France, and I have any culture of that kind of hunt. I have never been there to that kind of hunt. I was riding quite a lot being younger, but now not anymore. My sisters are crazy about horses, but not me. And that was a friend who invited me to just participate to that hunt. And it's completely incredible. All the, how to explain it? I don't know, but all the tradition and all the surrounding. There are so many people participating at that hunt, probably 120 something. People on bike, people walking on horse, jeeps. All the village was present there. And it's just beautiful to see how all those people, join together to share the same passion. And at the end, 90% of the time, they will not catch anything. Most of the time, the deer will escape. And
are they hunting just a single animal?
Yeah. The dog chooses the animal with the head gamekeeper, but he's letting the dog do the job and choose the animal. And they will only go after a male with the stag.
And how is it killed at the end?
That's the part I don't like it so much, maybe because it's not in my culture. But at the end, the dog will surround the stag, which probably will go in a pond or a river or something. And the head gamekeeper or someone designated before will go with a long knife. I don't know what you call it, but
like a spear.
Yeah.
And
we'll kill the deer.
Yeah, okay. I have seen pictures of that before. It's very far removed from culture and tradition that I know, and I've never been there. I've never been part of it, so it's difficult for me to comment on it other than just be intrigued as to the process.
Same for me, but it was very interesting and to be there and to see it from inside, because we mostly have a very bad image of it.
Yeah.
But when you see it from inside, yes, of course, maybe it seems barbaric for some people, of course. But at the end, the deer has a lot of chains, maybe much more than any other kind of hunt. Because most of the time, you will escape the dog.
And what do they do? I'm assuming they eat the deer at the end of the day, do they?
The dog, yeah, for the meat. All the meat is
Oh,
for
the
the
meat
dog.
goes for the to feed the hounds. Yeah,
Yeah.
I know how much those packs of hounds eat.
Exactly, yeah. But not that at that moment. I mean, they will cut the deer,
Later they cut it
probably
up.
take the best part for the hunter. I don't know that's exactly, but most of the meat will go for the hound.
Interesting. Yeah, it's something I will need to dig in more. I'd like to go and see it and just sort of immerse myself in it so that I can understand it better and
Exactly.
understand
That I
how
had like
important it is part of their culture and tradition. And I mean, we're just this whole issue that we're putting out on Modern Huntsman is about culture and traditions in particular, and trying to wrap your head around traditions from different parts of the world, which might be very far removed from what you're comfortable with, and trying to decide, or not necessarily decide, but trying to come to a point of understanding of what traditions have a place in the modern world and what traditions, which many of which were historic traditions, we've decided as society are no longer like morally acceptable, like fighting bears with dogs. It still goes on illegally, but it was very much part of the culture of certain cultures historically, but we don't do it anymore. And some of these, like some activities like this, are kind of on the edge of that. And I think we will get to these very polar debates about whether these kind of activities, which arguably are very important parts of certain cultures, should continue in modern society. But it is something I would certainly like to see, so I could understand it.
Sure, and I mean, I was very interested in being part of it, just to see it from inside, because you cannot have a good opinion if you don't know perfectly the subject.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm 100% with you on that.
So I will not say my personal opinion on that, and still have to figure out. But yeah, just seeing it, it's beautiful in a way.
There's a lot of people very happy to give their opinions without knowing anything on a subject.
That's true.
Now, just as a way to wrap up, there's one final image I want to ask you about, and it is a truly stunning depiction of the Milky Way with a safari vehicle and somebody standing on top, I think pointing at the sky. I'm assuming that was in Namibia as well. Tell me about that night, and tell me a little, because some people will be interested in this. Without digging into it too much, the technical aspect of taking an image like that.
Yeah, first a bit of history, probably, for the photo. That was at the end of our stay in Arindi, after being in the bush for every day. Final evening there, we were very sad to leave the next morning. So we asked our local guy if he was willing to take us that night on the Waterhole, because we said, yeah, the sky looks crazy. There is there is zero light pollution. You can see like from 100 miles, you don't see any light. So we said, can you take us somewhere with the water? Because we wanted to have, the first idea was to have the sky reflecting in the water. So he said, oh yeah, okay, but the Milky Way is showing up only around, it was one in the night, I think, something like that. So we went back to the lodge, eat, and go back with the jeep to the Waterhole. And that was a quite stressful experience. We arrived at the Waterhole, and we were first scouting for any predator, just no lion or cheetah or any dangerous animal around. And the guy said, okay, you can set up your tripod and stuff. And then we shut all the light just to get the better exposure of the stars and the Milky Way. And we took like several pictures. Then suddenly we heard like a big splash 2 meters from us in the water. And I've never run as fast in my life. I just took my tripod, went in the car, and we were all three together in the car in literally like half second probably. And we light up all the car, and we saw a young hippo coming out of the waterhole. And then the guy said, okay, I think we have to move on because now the mother will go for the young one.
Yeah.
So we are in trouble. So we had almost maybe 10 minutes to take the pictures and then back to the lodge.
And this is one of the images you got in that 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So what do you, and this is the final question before we wrap this up. How do you line up a picture like that when you're trying to get the sky in focus? It's difficult in the dark. What does it use? Do you pick a bright star? Preferably, you want a night with no moon, because if you've got a moon, it's very easy to focus on the moon. How do you get the focus and decide that sort of balance between your f-stop and your length of exposure, so you don't get blurring of the stars as they're moving through the sky?
Yeah, this shot is probably shot around 2.8 aperture, probably. I think so. And the best way to focus on the star is to, like, if your camera, normally most of camera now can do it, but you can like zoom in your screen of the camera, like maybe 5 times zoom or something, and a manual focus on the star from the screen, not pointing and looking in the mirror.
Sure.
And that's for me, it's the best way.
Yeah, using the live view, or if you've got a mirrorless, then you can just look through the viewfinder.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's tricky, but it's a stunning shot. Derek, I'm going to wrap this up because we've been talking for half an hour on a handful of pictures. It's been fascinating. I hope that I get a chance to meet you again in person, because although we've talked before and both aware of the work that we each other do, we'd only met the once, and it was pretty briefly, and it was pissing down with rain outside, and you were busy with 2 days shooting for a job straight after. So I imagine that we will end up meeting somewhere in the field. I spend a lot of time in the States, so you never know. Maybe I'll be there when you do your road trip at the end of the year.
Hope so, yeah. That would be cool.
Cool. Well, thanks very much for joining us today on Behind the Lens.
Thank you for having me.